Hey, 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 party people. It's Brandi and Cesley, and we're back with Blooming Through Faith, the podcast that helps you grow and bloom in your mindset, lifestyle, health, and wealth. We want you to know that you are capable, beautiful, and worthy. Now, we told you guys we are going to help you glow up in your wealth too. So today, that's exactly what we're doing. Yeehaw! I'm so excited, okay? So we have my dear friend, I should say our dear friend. I shouldn't keep her to myself because Cesley and Ashton are friends too. And my mentor, Ashton Beisel, friend and mentor who has been personally helping me on this subject, okay? So here's the deal. I have a financial planner for like 12 years, and I also have Ashton, and I need both because I need all the help that I can get. Let me tell you a little bit about Ashton, okay? So her and her wonderful husband, I'm obsessed with Devin, like we're obsessed with Mitch and Tommy, or obsessed with Devin, okay? He's
We all have good
incredible.
husbands.
Great husbands. They live in Oklahoma with their 3 sons, Isaac, Camden, and Chase. They serve families nationwide as safe money experts and life insurance agents. They have been coaching people in their finances, marriage, parenting, and health for 14 years together. Their passion is education. Once people are educated on the truths about money, they know how to steward it well. They pride themselves on relationships being built with integrity and trust. Recognized as top 10 financial professional in 2020, recognized as number 35 nationwide, and serving clients in 2023. So these two are incredible at what they do. And I can tell you because they've helped me. All right. And so what we're going to do is Ashton is going to answer some questions that Cesley and I put together about budgeting, saving money, spending money, and investing. So guys, grab a notepad because you are going to want to take notes today. Cesley, you want to kick us off?
Awesome. Thank you, Ashton, so much for being here. We're super excited. So let's just dive right in because we have a lot to ask you and a minimal amount of time. So we're going to start with budgeting. So how can we create a realistic budget that aligns with our financial goals and lifestyle?
Oh, yes. The fun topic of budgeting. It's so funny. Money is a fun topic because we all know it takes money to do life, right? And I think some people, depending on the way that you were raised, you get a little uncomfortable talking about money, right? Like some people were raised like money is the root of all evil. It's bad to want more money, right? And that's actually not true. It's the love of money or the obsession of money that can become the root of all evil, right? Like we all need income. We all need money. And my personal belief is that, we're given money to be a steward of that. And then once you're able to steward it very well, you'll be entrusted with more so you can make more of an impact, right? Like, so many times we'll see someone who has a need. We'll see someone that's hurting. We'll see someone that's grieving. We'll see someone that's going through a pain point. And a lot of times money can be the solution to that, right? Like where you can take something off of their plate. Maybe you need to, buy somebody a new car, or maybe you pay their mortgage for a month or whatever it is. I just believe that money is a solution. And so that goes back to your question about budgeting, right? Like, why is it important to budget? I think you have to have the right mindset first, and then you need the tools, right? And the mindset part is that we're a steward. You're not entitled to the money that you have. You're a steward of the money that you have. And every person that I know would love to make more money. Cesley, Brandi, I have never met a person who said, you know what, actually, Ashton, my bank account is not accepting any more funds. So it's closed off. Like, okay, I'll put the $5,000 check back in my purse then, right? I mean, there's no human like that. And so if you know that you want to create more wealth, you know that you want to create that generationally, you know that maybe you want to do things differently than your parents did, budgeting is so, so important. And I can tell you guys specifically in a minute about a tool that I have that people can use, but that's the biggest thing that I want to start with is just the mindset behind it. Because if you know why you're doing it, then you're going to do it well, as opposed to just, okay, this is what Ashton on this podcast said I needed to do. You have to feel it's important to you to make the time to do it.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you're starting with the mindset because that's really what Brandi and I want to help women learn about so many different topics is you can shift and adjust your mindset on anything. You're going to be able to change your life. And when you said that maybe you were taught a certain thing about money as a kid, I was completely triggered because my mother, and I'll even say this to this day, my mother always said it's very rude. You know, we're very Southern. It's rude to talk about money. We don't talk about money. I couldn't tell you how much money my parents made. I couldn't tell you how they stewarded it because that's a hands-off topic. We never talked about it. So I think it's so funny that you brought that up because I immediately thought, oh, yeah, we never talked about money. We weren't allowed to talk about money. You weren't allowed to ask about money. It was just very much against the rules.
Right.
So going into that, what would you say are the key components of an effective budget and how can we track our expenses just better, more efficiently?
Yeah. So one thing that you can do, and I'm sure that Brandi and Cesley can share this link somewhere, but you can go to workwithdevinandashton.com/budget sheet. And Devin and I give away our budget sheet that we give to our clients for free because I'm so passionate about that's where it all begins. And I tell people, listen, if I ask you, how much money do you have coming in every month? And how much money do you have going out every month? And you cannot tell me the answer like this in the snap of a finger, we need to increase your stewardship. Okay. And it's not, I don't have enough time. It's not, I don't have whatever. Listen, we all make time for what's important to us. Right. And like we said before, like you need money to like buy water and stuff. So it's kind of a priority, like above the Netflix show or above anything else, you know, that you feel. And some people don't want to look at their budget. They want to live in denial with their head in the sand. And unfortunately, you know, Devin and I work with a lot of people and most people end up dead or dead broke by the age of 65. It's just true. You know, and you guys talk a lot about health and other things on here that, you know, go into that. But if you're constantly stressed about money or you're living with your head in the sand, then you're going to wake up one day and be like, oh my gosh. So when you go to workwithdevinandashton.com/budget sheet, you'll see exactly. So it gives you a place to plug in how much money is coming in every month from all sources. And if you're in sales, my encouragement to you would to choose your average to lowest month. So like, let's say your high months are $8,000 a month, your low months are $5,000 a month, pick 5,500. I'd rather you budget your whole life on your lower months. And then the extra is gravy, baby. Like put it in savings, invest it, whatever. Okay. So you want to have what's coming in. And then you want to start with number one, paying yourself. I have something called the pay yourself principle. It is you pay yourself 10% before you pay anybody else. Everyone else is coming after that paycheck. The mortgage company, the gas company, the lighting company, your kids' school, your kids' clothes, like everyone else coming after that paycheck. You pay you first, remove whatever else you need from your life before you to pay yourself if you need to remove something else. So paying yourself. And then of course you have all of your expenses, go through every single one of those expenses. And then on top of that, of course, your bills. And by expenses, I mean like groceries. I mean like how many birthday parties do you pay for a year? That has to be budgeted out every month. So if you have 3 kids like I do, and you want to spend $500 per birthday, well, you don't want to just have that extra expense in one month. You want to set aside for it every month. And guess what comes every year, girls? Christmas. I know it's a shocker, but every year Christmas comes, right? So a part of your budget every month should be setting aside money for Christmas so you're not going into debt, right? And so again, our budget sheet goes through all those things.
I love that. Would you have an account for that? A separate account for kids' birthdays, Christmas, where you're putting something aside monthly?
You can. And I know it's so funny because I was literally just did a call yesterday with my accountant and my CPA because Devin and I have multiple businesses. So they help us keep it organized. And that's just something I personally love to outsource that. And we always laugh because I have so many different accounts. So for example, I'm an entrepreneur and that means that I have to be disciplined to set aside my own taxes. Okay. So when we get paid, the taxes comes out of our main bank account. And then if you want to have a little savings account for, let's say it's birthday parties, Christmas, even just friends' birthdays, man, my kids, like They go to a small private Christian school. These kids get invited to a birthday party every single week. I'm like, listen, we're giving Billy and Don and Bobby $25 every weekend. Plus we're going to basketball tournaments. My son is in a basketball tournament every night this week. It's $20 for us all to get in, right? So, I mean, you've got to plan these things. So yes, you could totally, guys, opening up another bank account to be organized so it's not sitting there where you pay your bills.
Yeah.
That is definitely a great question and something I would encourage people to do.
I love that. And you said something, I just want to repeat it. You said most people end up dead or dead broke by 65. That is so powerful. If you didn't hear that and you grab your notepad, do that now. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And it's so funny that we're talking about this right now, because in our last episode, we were talking about how people have these responses to things. And you said most people want to go into denial and stick their head in the sand. And we talked a lot about that, like freeze response. And that's most of us. We just want to go, oh, this is a lot. I'm just going to talk about this later. And then later never comes. So this is so important. I'm so glad we're talking about this. So on the topic of spending, what strategies do you have as far as how do we control our discretionary spending, that spending like birthday parties, things like that, going out to eat without feeling overly restricted? Is there like a balance? What's the best way? How do you guys handle that?
Yeah, I love your question too about asking without feeling overly restricted, because here's the thing. There's, people out there that different people subscribe to, and they're like beans and rice and Jesus Christ until you are out of debt. And here's the thing. It's so funny is you ask people, and I'm not knocking that entire concept. I'm just telling you from years and years of working with people. Here's the thing. People that try to do that for a season, they don't stick to it.
They quit. Yeah.
Yeah. And then 5 years later, they try to do it again. And then 5 years later, they try to do it again. Here's what I believe is like who wants to work all week long and then not be able to enjoy the fruits of their labor? That kind of sucks. I don't want to experience that, but I want to be a good steward. And I want to be wise. And again, it goes back to budgeting. You guys would not believe the amount of adults who make significant income who I ask, how much money is coming in every month? How much is going out? Do you have a budget sheet? No, I don't. You would be shocked. Like great, smart, savvy, incredible humans. Okay. So that's step one is if you just make a budget sheet, you're like, we spend a little much on groceries. So there's this app that I love. Okay. You can download it. It's called Rocket Money. Okay. Rocket Money. Incredible app. And it will show you and give you a very healthy dose of reality of what you spend every single month on groceries, what you spend on eating out. You can actually create categories as well. So it will give you general categories like business expenses, eating out, groceries, gas. It'll give you those general ones. We created a separate one that says boys because I have 3 boys, right? So it's like what we're spending every month on them. Is that accurate? Like, is what's happening in Rocket Money accurate with what your budget sheet says? Because when you go fill out your budget sheet, you're going to be using your best guess. I promise you are spending more money than you think, especially on eating out. And so you just have to know, hey, here's the parameters of what we have in this season and what's important to you. That's why I went back, like in the very beginning, I talked about mindset. For me, it is and that's why it's important who you work with and who's advising you financially. That's one of the first things we asked our clients. What's important to you? Because what's important to me might not be important to someone else. It is very important to me to be a wise steward of my money because my parents made a lot of money when I was young. Devin's parents struggled big time, but my parents spent all their money. And so later in life, they had that struggle, right? And then Devin's mom, unfortunately just didn't have, a ton of help. So she was working 2 jobs and doing the very best that she could. So I think what's important to you determines how you spend your money. And for us, it's very important to save and to leave a legacy and to be wise stewards so we can enjoy our lives, right? Like when you're stressed, there's nothing worse than being stressed out financially. There's nothing worse than that, especially for women. And I know that it's probably 99.9% women listening to this. And I want to share something with you is that when you have financial freedom, it equals emotional freedom that you never knew that you could have. Like when you truly have financial freedom, and that comes from being a good steward. There's people, listen, I work with people that make a lot lot of money every single month and they don't have any emotional freedom because they spend it all. And then I
Yeah.
work with people that don't make that much money, but they're really good stewards and they're happy and they're freer and they're better. So, it goes back to your heart behind it. But then I would, using a tool like Rocket Money is super helpful.
I love that, Ashton. And I'm just going to say Ashton's not lying because I was that person. She's like, okay, cool. Do you have a budget? I was like, no, I do not. I do not.
In my head.
I was that person with head in sand, needed a wake-up call. So thank you for that. And then Ashton, there's another app. It's the Mint app, correct?
Yeah.
You can't do the Rocket Money.
Yeah, some people's bank accounts don't let them. It's more rare. I think it's only been like 2 people that I've worked with. Yeah, you
Wasn't you?
And one other lady. She was like, my bank won't allow Rocket Money or whatever. So the Mint app works as well.
I love it. Let's pop back, Cesley. Let's pop back and ask one more question about the budget. How often should we review our budget? So you've created one. We're grown-ups now. Yeehaw. How often should we go back and check our budget?
We all grew up after this podcast. Yeah. So Rocket Money, we check that every single week. So usually reminder in my phone to look at Rocket Money. If I need to reorganize anything that didn't get categorized properly, I do that and just make sure we're on track. Right. And then usually we'll review our budget every couple months because maybe you have to adjust something. Like my kids are getting older. They're all going into select sports. It is very expensive. And so I have to add to that and make sure that we're allocating for that. And then also too, that our financial goals surround that. Right. So if you work full time, and your expenses are starting to increase, maybe you need to pick up a side hustle, right? If you're in sales and your expenses start to increase, well, you got to get working, right? You got to get moving. You got to create a bigger goal for yourself. So every couple months, for the budget sheet, and I encourage you to sit down and do it together. And then usually there's kind of one spouse that tends to spearhead this area. And so, like with us, Devin and I will just sit down and look at Rocket Money together and make sure that we're on track and that our budget sheet actually is matching what we're doing.
Love it.
Cesley, was there
love
something?
That. And I love what you said. I love what you said, and I want to touch on what you said about your kids, because I think so often, and I think we have a lot of moms that tune into our podcast that feel a little bit out of control when it comes to spending in their kids, because our mindset generally tends to be, well, my kids need this. And what you just said resonated so much, because I just went into a season where we had to pay for all the kids' youth camps this summer and new motocross equipment and all their summer sports, and it all comes in the spring. And so I did not have this lovely information before. I paid for it all up front, and I was like, ooh, that was a hard hit at once. But just think, because I never even thought of, you blew my mind just now. So you've already changed one life. You blew my mind in that, just that small note of, you should be budgeting out for your children's birthdays and things like that, and their sports and so I think as moms and as women, we don't think about all of the little things to go into our budget. So I just love that we're talking about it, because we think of like the big items, right? Like, I need to pay my mortgage, I need to pay for my car, we need to buy groceries, but we don't think about those little things that are going to come up. It's not if they'll come up, it's about when they'll come up.
Exactly. Yeah. Like on our budget, we have each of our kids' names written down, and then a certain amount, they each have little savings accounts. And by savings account, it doesn't mean like, this is for your future one day and I'm just going to hand it to you. It's a savings account so we can just move money out of where our bills come from. And so they have money saved there. Now, we do have money for their future there too, but that's not what it's completely for. And then my 14-year-old, he doesn't have to. He's very fortunate, and we're very fortunate. He doesn't have to do this, but the kid has a business. We're like, hey, you're either getting a job, and he plays tackle football, he plays select basketball, he lifts weights in the evening. He has a very full schedule with his school. But we said, hey, at 14, you are going to either have a business or you are going to get a job. Those are your two choices. And so he has money. The kid has like $1,000 upstairs in his wallet. He has his own money, where certain things are certain, like, if it's one of his best friend's birthdays and he wants to get something bigger that's outside of the allotment that we say, hey, this is what we do for birthdays. But if you want to contribute the extra, you can. And so he does that.
I love
Love
that.
it.
All right, let's jump to saving money for a little bit. We kind of talked about it. We talked about that nice app and how to get rid of some expenses. How much should we aim to save each month based on our income? Where you kind of talked about taxes. You kind of talked about saving. So if you have these different accounts, how much should we be saving each month?
Yeah, so you should be saving at least 10% every single month. That's a great place to start. So if you're making $10,000 a month, you should be saving $1,000 a month. And like I said, once you download Rocket Money, you'll see, oh, like here's some areas that we're just overspending, right? Like you don't realize it. I mean, for us, we have a family of 5 guys. One roll through Chick-fil-A, let me tell you right now, that's $60. You know what I mean? And a couple times a week, we just have really reined those things in where we prep a lot of our food. And so if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, that sounds awesome, Ashton, I would love to save 10%, but I don't think that's going to work for me. I promise you, you download Rocket Money, you will find something. And if you have to start with 5%, start with 5%. But I would encourage you to get anything else off of your plate. Like, for example, you can shop every year. You should shop your car insurance and your homeowner's insurance because they're always running deals to acquire new business. So we helped a couple, they were paying $460 for car and homeowner's insurance. We helped them get that down to under $200 a month. Same thing for the phone bill. I've been with a specific phone carrier since I was 18 years old. I'm 36 now. Okay. Long time. And I know that they want to keep my business. Well, I saw a commercial for another phone carrier for the exact thing that we need for our family. So Isaac has a phone, Devin has a phone, I have a phone, 3 lines, okay, unlimited everything. So I called and just said, hey, I saw that this other phone carrier is offering this. Would you be willing to give me that same deal? Because I would love to continue to give you my business. I believe they should be paid what they're worth, but I also believe as a client that I should be getting what I'm worth too, right? And Devin and I, listen, like we're in a place where okay, we don't have to do that, right? Like it's not a big deal. God has blessed us immensely, but I believe even in that little action that I'm taking, I'm saying I care and I will be faithful with the little so God can entrust me to make me a ruler over much. Because it's if I'm just thinking about myself with money, there's always going to be a limit. But if my vision is bigger and I say I want to do all these other things, that all starts with these little things like saving and being a good steward, having a budget sheet, looking at what you're spending. And, you can make some of those very small adjustments and find that 10%.
That's awesome. And just even talking about Chick-fil-A or restaurants, like the prices of everything have gone up.
I know.
And
Crazy.
so if we're still spending like we used to, but the prices have gone up, then we're going to be in debt, right? Speaking of debt and saving money, credit card debt, what is your advice there when it comes to, okay, now we're putting, the 10% away. How much should be going to our credit cards?
Yeah, that's a good question. It kind of depends on the person, and I'm sure we'll get to, how to set up an appointment, with Devin and I before we jump off of here, but it really depends on the person. Obviously, you don't want to just be paying the minimum because you're never going to get out of debt, right? Like especially credit cards because the interest rate is so high. So there are some creative things that you can do, for example, if you find a company that has a 0% interest rate for a year, then you can pay off all those other cards and just start hacking away at the ones that you have because that interest is really what eats it up on credit cards specifically. So, when it comes to debt, again, if you start the budget sheet and you start to be more of a faithful steward and you say, hey, like in America, eating out is such a just like, it's not a luxury. It's just something we just, oh, let's drive through here. Oh, we're in a hurry, right? So even for our family, we've made it to where like, hey, we're only going through, which our boys love Chick-fil-A. Okay. So I just keep using that as an example. We're only going through Chick-fil-A once a week. That's it. And so you can pick your day that we do that. And that's all. And we download the Chick-fil-A app and we make sure that we're, getting the points because usually Jace, my youngest, his whole meal ends up being free from the points that we have from every single time that we go. So those little things kind of give you that a little extra wiggle room to where you can start to snowball that debt. But one of the biggest things I'll tell you is if you have credit card debt, try to search for a 0% interest credit card, pay the other 2 off or 3 off, and then just hammer it out for that first year. And you may have to make some sacrifices. Maybe it's like, hey, we only go out to eat every other week. But to Cecely's point earlier, we want to enjoy our life. So maybe you figure out a way where you can do a fun little night at home that only costs $20, right? And you do some fun things from the dollar store so you don't feel like deprived, right? You're still like doing fun things. You just have to get a little more creative.
I like that a lot. And you guys, if you didn't hear, Chick-fil-A, download the app. Yeah. Get the points, get free meals. Okay, there's another fun little tip for you.
We have all the apps. We have so many apps.
All of the apps. All the apps. So yeah, we actually on our website have a space for all of the apps that we talk about on this podcast. Yeah. So we will be adding your Chick-fil-A app as well. Okay. I have one more question about saving money, and then I'm going to pass it over to Cesley to ask some questions about spending money, which is her favorite. I'm just kidding. It's my favorite. But what strategies can we use to stay motivated? So what can we do to stay motivated? Because I feel like with all goals in life, right? We're like, okay, we're to set a budget. We're going to save. And then 2 months later, we're doing the same things that we said we weren't going to do anymore. So how can we stick with what we said we were going to do in creating our budget so that we are paying off debt, so that we are saving, so that we are investing?
Yeah. So there's this scripture that I love. And if scripture is not your thing, that's totally okay. Okay. It's still great wisdom, but it's my thing. I'm a person of faith. Okay. So there's a scripture that I love, and it says, without vision, people perish. Without vision, people perish. And so if you don't have a clear vision, because, you should have 3 to 6 months worth of savings in your bank account. So if you make $10,000 a month, you should at minimum have 30. Okay. Well, once you have 30, to your point, Brandi, it's like, okay, well, this money is just going and sitting there and making me feel warm and cozy. And some people struggle with that, right? Like they feel like it'll find a place to go if it just sits in their bank account. And so having someone who is your financial coach, like what Devin and I do for a lot of people, that's what we ask them. Like, hey, if you don't have 3 to 6 months worth of savings, that's the first goal. And we want to celebrate with you as you do that. Then once you have the 3 to 6 months worth of savings in your traditional bank, then we can show you things like, hey, this money that you would be putting in your traditional bank, if you put it over here into this growth tool, and all the growth tools, like Brandi said earlier, we're safe money experts. Okay. Safe money. That means it's not in places that you can lose money. We do not recommend places you can lose money, only places you can grow your money. So for example, we show you like, hey, okay, let's say you saved, $6,000 this year. If you do that every single year for the next 10 years, here's what that can look like in this safe growth tool. What would you guys want to do with that kind of money? Oh my gosh, we'd love to finally buy a house, or we'd love to do this. We'd love to do that. Whatever it is for you, that motivates you to stay on track with your savings. When you have that vision for your life, you're not going to go back into those bad habits. And then 2, sometimes it's just accountability, right? Like when you have a financial coach and you know that you're like annually we meet with our people, and if people need to meet more often, we're more than happy to do that. But it's someone that's going to challenge you and pull out the best of you in this area, because a lot of times we repeat what we've seen, and you don't want to end up dead or dead broke by 65. There's too many podcasts and too many great educational things out there that now you're accountable, right? Like maybe back in the day, our parents didn't know any different, but there's just too many resources nowadays for anyone to not live free in this area.
Yes. You've listened to the Blooming Through Faith podcast, and now you should be an expert on money. You should not be making those mistakes.
Right. Exactly.
I love it. Okay. So let's get into, we talked about a lot about spending money in kind of the last couple of things we've been talking about, but how can we distinguish between essential and non-essential expenses when we're making our spending decisions? So like, what would you classify as essential, and what would I know you touched a little bit about eating out and stuff, but other than that, what would you consider like non-essential that you recommend people cut the fat there?
If you are someone that struggles in this area, that's like swipey swipe, it's fine, we'll figure it out later, right? Like if that's you, here's what I encourage you. Number 1, you need to wait 24 hours before making any purchase.
Ooh, that's good.
I'm talking about even if you're like, oh my gosh, I
I
want to get
love this advice.
I want to
Mhm.
get these dish towels off of Amazon. Dude, Amazon, it's like, I mean, it's dangerous, right? You can just like, oh, we need dish towels, right? Wait 24 hours and be like, okay, do I actually need new dish towels or should I just wash these ones I have? Or, oh, I forgot we have these extra rags when we hired, whatever. When we hired maids a couple years ago, I forgot we had these in the laundry room. Guys, $15 regularly on Amazon, it adds up. Okay. So anything that's non-essential, you'll know it's non-essential if you wait 24 hours and you think to yourself, I don't really need this, right? Like it's going to be okay. I mean, for me, I love supplements, like all things supplements. I'm such a sucker. I'm such a sucker for some good supplements and some high quality ingredients. So if I see something on Instagram, that I'm like, oh, or like a hair care thing or skincare, like that's all that stuff always sucks me in. I'm like, I'm going to wait 24 hours. And if I still feel like I really want this, then I'll go back and get it. That's kind of how you know if something's essential or non essential. And if you want to go the extra step, and you really want to grow in this area, pick an amount. And if anything is above that amount, you say, I'm going to run this by my financial coach, right? If it's like, hey, we want to take a trip to blah, blah, blah place, like, here's kind of where we're at financially. Here's where we're at savings wise. What do you think about this? And you have to be okay with them challenging you and saying, no, you guys don't need to stay at that resort, stay at an Airbnb, right? Don't eat out for lunch, make sandwiches and go out for a nice dinner and find a place that kids eat free. Guys, you can still, what are we talking about here? We live in America. We live such a blessed and incredible life. It's not like that's such a hard thing to do for your financial future. But again, it goes back to what's your vision, right? I don't want to end up dead or dead broke at 65. I don't want my kids to have to feel like I got to break some financial generational curses. No, that's on me. Like all of this stuff, it ran in my family until it ran into me. I'm going to be the one. I'm going to break the cycle. And no, it's not always easy. You have to be organized, you have to suck it up, buttercup, but that's how you'll know if something's essential or not essential for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of that, this is kind of an off the cuff question, but what do you do? Because you mentioned, running it by your financial coach. Do you run into sometimes families or spouses, because we're geared towards women. How would you recommend that they're having a conversation maybe with their husband about spending or their significant other? I know this is a hard question, but like I just thought about it as you're talking about this. What if they don't agree on the spending? Do you see a lot of couples like that, or do you tell them, hey, get to a place where you are agreeing and then come talk to us?
I love this question. I love this question. So I am so glad that you brought it up. Actually, I did a podcast last week and she asked a similar question. So here's how I handle that. Number one, that is why it's important. I just talked to a woman this morning. She's like, okay, I want to meet with you. Just let me talk to my husband. It's so helpful because they have Devin too. It's another couple, right? Like they have Devin as their sounding board and the wife has me as their sounding board, but they have us both, right? And so just saying like, hey, would you be willing to just meet with them, right? Like, here's the thing about us, and again, you may have somebody that you love already, and that's great. Obviously, I don't know those people, so I'm just talking about what we do, okay? But the thing about us is we're just here to educate. That's all we're going to do. And most men, once they're educated, they're like, oh, I didn't know another way, right? Or, oh, I do want to help my wife feel secure. So this is important to me. And here's one thing that I want to say on this topic, okay? So number one, you need to include them in that meeting with that financial person so they have accountability, right? A lot of people, they'll do lots of interesting things until they have some accountability and someone else knows about it, right? Like that's how that should go. And then number two, if you are a woman listening to this and you feel like you're in the dark financially, like some people will be like, I don't know, my husband handles all of that. I don't know. I don't even know the login to our bank account. Let me tell you something right now. I am going to give you some tough love. Okay. I've been talking to you now for 30 minutes. That is completely not okay. I love you so much. That is not okay. You need to have that information. I have walked with too many women through tragic, unexpected loss that didn't realize their name wasn't on the house. Another one, their name wasn't on the bank account. So imagine your husband passes away. You can't get into any bank account. And so you're like, I only have $300 in my little bank account because he took care of everything. That is not okay. You need to have what we call, number one, access to everything. Okay. Then number two, you need to have an I love you folder. And an I love you folder is in case anything happens, all the passwords, all the everything you could need, any kind of money, any kind of home thing. Yes, it takes time, but never ever say not you, right? Like I always say, I'm like, man, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but then I'll pass it back to you. But I always say, like, it's so crazy to me because it's illegal for people to drive on a road without car insurance. You will like get a major ticket, right? I don't know, maybe you can go to jail. I'm not totally sure how that works, right? But I know it's illegal. Okay. It's illegal to do that. How is it not illegal when you have a wife and you have a family, or you have a husband and you have a family, to not have life insurance? I mean, seriously, it is not okay. I don't care how much. First of all, Devin and I do this all the time. It's really not that expensive. Okay. People think like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to do this exam and blah, 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 blah. Like, it's really not that intimidating. A lot of people that are young, which is probably most women listening to this, don't even have to do an exam. Okay. Now, some people do that have health issues, and maybe the insurance is a little more, but you have no idea what may or may not happen. And so, number one, you have to have access to that, and you have to have financial advisors that are there to educate and to be on the same page with, so then you can go back and run things by them. And it's okay to have opposing views on things, but where you can come to a compromise. And then, without a shadow of a doubt, every single person, if you are listening to this and you have children or you have a spouse, please, I have walked with too many people where they woke up the next day and they didn't have a spouse anymore. They woke up the next day, something happened to their child. God forbid. I know this like is not a fun topic to talk about, but I care so much. And the next thing that I'm talking to them about is money. I don't want to talk to you about money. I want to talk to you about how are we going to live the rest of your life without your child or your spouse, right? So that's something that I am extremely passionate about.
And it's so important. And I'm glad that you went on a little bit of a tangent there with that, because as we were talking about money, that was the first thing that popped into my head. I'm like, well, what happens when, you and your spouse you're walking through this walk together? And I think we live in a day and age now where so many women are in positions of business that they haven't always been in. The opportunity there is so great for women, like you said, to pick up a side hustle, to be in an online business. And that's where a lot of women are living now, because they're not having to sacrifice time with their kids. But I don't know that we are all treating it like a business. I don't know that we're thinking long term, because all we're thinking about a lot of times is, hey, I get to do something where I'm bringing in income, where I'm spending time with my family and I'm not sacrificing. And it's time to start treating it like the business that it is. It's time to start looking at your future. So I love that we kind of went into that. Brandi, I'll let you take it and talk a little bit about investing.
Absolutely. I think we talked a little bit about investing, but I know this is something else that you're really passionate about, Ashton. So what advice do you have for somebody who, okay, we have that 3 months in our account saved, right? What are the best next steps to take to start investing? Where does somebody even start?
Yeah, that's a good question. So everyone's situation is different. I'll give you guys some general rules of thumb that I have about investing, but everyone's situation is so different, again, of like what you want and what your long-term goals are. So first thing you got to do is set up an appointment with someone that you trust. Devin and I are there. If you don't have someone, if you have someone else, great. Okay. Just laying it all out on the table and being vulnerable with them and telling them what you want to do. So here's some rules of thumb that I have for investing. Okay. Your foundational investments. Okay, think of the foundation of your house. You want the foundation of your house to be rock solid, right? Your foundational investment should be in places that you cannot lose money, but your money can grow. Okay, you cannot lose money, but your money can grow. Now, once you have that foundation down, if you want to do like a little bit of a riskier investment, if you want to have some money in the market or in stocks or whatever, and I'm not knocking the market, I'm not knocking those things, but the reality is you can lose money, right? In those places. It's just the truth. But I want you to think of that kind of like the window to your house, or think of it like curtains, right? If this window right in front of me right here, it got broken by a baseball, I'm not going to be like devastated and crying in the corner, right? I'm going to be like, okay, it's probably $1,000 to replace this window. But if the foundation of my house gets shaken or has a crack in it, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So then I'm going to be crying in the corner. So your foundational investments should not be in a place you can lose money, but places that it can grow. And Devin and I can explain that and help people with that. That should be rule number one. Okay. Meaning like your bigger investments. Okay. And again, we help people with kind of, well, what percentage of what percentage should that be? All that kind of stuff. But I personally, my rule is if you don't lose money, you're already winning, right? So a lot of people think like the traditional way of investing is all of your money is tied to the market in some way. Again, not bad, but it shouldn't be the foundation. So for example, like if you have an old 401k that's just sitting there, most people don't realize that can lose money. Okay. And that's something you want to get into a safe place. That's what Devin and I do all week long. If you have an IRA, if you have a Roth IRA, we definitely need to take a look at that because 99.9% that I look at, they're in places that you can lose money. If you have money tied to the market in any way, let's say you grabbed your money and took it down to the local chain place or whatever, and you know that that's tied to the market, again, you can have some of it in those places, but not the foundation, okay? Not the majority of it. So those are really my rules when it comes to investing. And this is my last rule. Never invest in something you don't understand. Okay, so for example, crypto. Okay, this gets talked about a lot. Okay, crypto. Crypto would be like a window investment. It's a risky investment. Listen, if it takes off, sweet. I own crypto, by the way. I own Bitcoin, I own Ethereum, okay? But it's like it's like the window and the curtains. It ain't my foundation. I'm not like putting tons of money into this thing. There's some money there. So, hey, listen, if it goes to the moon, then cool, sweet, we're all rich, right? But like if it doesn't, I'm not going to go cry about that money that I put in there. And to be honest with you, like my understanding of crypto is very limited. I just know, all right, I'll buy this just for funsies. And if I lost the money I put into it, I don't really care. Right. So that's a hard rule I have. And that's again, why Devin and I are passionate about education, because once you understand the types of investments that we do, it is a no-brainer.
Love it. I'm going to pass it back over to Cesley with some more questions about kind of strategy when it comes to budgeting and saving.
Yeah. And I think it's hilarious that crypto was the example because I remember when my husband wanted to invest in crypto and I was like, what are you talking about? What is that? And he was like, just a little bit. I was like, I don't even know what that is. So if I worked with you, I probably would have called you and been like, what do we do?
I will tell you, my brother is
Five
all
alarm.
about crypto. So I've heard about crypto a lot and often. So I'm probably a professional about it, but no, I'm just
It's okay. He invested the way that Ashton, like a window. It was just like a window. It was a little,
a little bit of fun money. No, listen, every girl on here has heard of crypto. If you have a man in your life, it's just
they're very excited about it.
They are.
All right. Overall financial strategy. Let's talk about how can we be prepared for you talked a little bit about it, major life events like buying a home, starting a family, going into retirement. What should we really be doing to be better prepared for that? Is it just starting to put our 10% to savings? But if we're talking to someone who's listening to this podcast and they're like, wow, this is a lot of information. I'm brand new to this. Like, what strategies can they be using to prepare for the big ticket items?
Yeah. So it goes back to what we talked about earlier. You got to download Rocket Money. If this topic overwhelms you, first of all, being overwhelmed is a decision, right? Like you're a big girl, right? You have to manage money. It's just part of life. Okay. And we're giving you all the tools to do it. So it goes to downloading Rocket Money, getting the budget sheet from Devin and I, making sure that you're being a good steward of what you have. And then you have to most people, they have no idea how much money it actually takes to slow down in life. And I don't, I say that versus retire because a lot of people feel like I'll never retire. I'm always going to keep helping people, but we all are going to have an age where we want to slow down, right? Like where you want to have very minimal expenses. You want to be able to focus on your grandkids. Devin and I were literally just joking this morning about my mom because we FaceTimed her. Devin and I were getting ready to go on a walk. And my mom and her husband have done, very well for themselves. And in the past several years have really, just turned it around in their planning. And I was like, here's my mom's day. My mom wakes up pretty much at whatever time she wants to and makes her husband breakfast. He goes off to the office because he's one of those, he'll slow down, but he'll never stop working, right? Then she goes and she makes herself a juice, a healthy juice. And then she goes and works out for 45 minutes and listens to her sermon. And then she thinks about her Bible study for the evening and her next tennis match. And then tomorrow she's got to wind down, happy hour with friends to celebrate the February birthdays. I'm like, this is my mother's life, right? Like for me, I'm like, okay, we have 3 basketball games tonight and then we have 2 tomorrow. Who can take, right? Like, I mean, but that's so awesome for her. She earned that right? And that all starts now. I want to have that life later too. And this weekend, she's driving up here to be with the kids. And in May, she's taking our entire family on a trip to Florida that her and her husband are paying for. I want to do that for my kids. And so again, to your question, it all goes back to the vision that you have. Yeah. It goes back to downloading Rocket Money, downloading the budget sheet, and starting a realistic plan to set aside for those things and figuring out how to make your money grow, right? Like you want to be putting your places again that it can grow and you can't lose it. So then you can plan for those big ticket items in the future.
Yeah. I love that. I love her life also. I think
I know.
Fantastic.
It's like, okay, that's my future. There's my vision. There's my vision, Ashton.
But I really love that you mentioned that because I think also we're shown so many different things that kind of capture us as far as like, you can retire at, 40 and you can make all this money and stop working. And it's this kind of, we have all of these different avenues of information that really kind of get our heads blown up into this idea of what life could be that's very unrealistic. And so I love that you said, like, what would it take to slow down? And it's really what is it taking to create a life that you love? And what are you working towards that vision? Because I think, social media has been our detriment. You see all these 20-year-old millionaires, quote unquote 20-year-old millionaires. It's my worst nightmare when it comes to teaching my children, because I have a 14-year-old son, my oldest, who thinks that this is how you make money. And I'm like, this is very false. This is a false narrative.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give everyone a little experiment really quick. I want you to do this. Okay. I want you to tell me what age you feel like you want to slow down. Okay. My mom is 60. Right. So what age would you want to slow down? If it's 50, cool. Like, listen, the sky's the limit. Okay. Pick that age. And then I want you to pick the age that you think that you're going to be called home to go be with Jesus. Okay. Let's all just pick 100, right? We're all going to live forever. Okay. Let's all pick 100, pick 105 if you want. And then I want you to take, okay, let's say it's 100. Let's say you really want to slow down at 55. All right. Well, why don't you figure out how many years that is and how much money. So say, what do you want to live off of every year? Okay. If you think, okay, my house will be paid off by the time I'm 60. I'm probably going to have some grandkids, right? Like I want to be able to do this for them. I want you to total up what you think that you want to live off of a year. So let's just do easy math. Okay. 100 minus 60. And then let's say you say, I want to live off $100,000 a year. You're a little behind. I promise you. Okay. Yep. Every person that I talk to, if you think that you are going to retire off of your 401k at work, you have another thing coming. It is a rare day that I talk to somebody, and we talk to a lot of people that can fully retire just off their 401k. You have to have more buckets. And I say all of this lovingly, but just to wake people up. Like, we want to live our best life now, right? We want to be in the present, but you also really need to think about, what do you want for the future and what is that actually going to take?
That's so good. I have one more question kind of on that. So you mentioned life insurance, right? So would you say that you would use the life insurance if somebody passes away to help with their funeral expenses, or is that something separate? Because I see a lot, and this is, coming from me losing my mom when I was young and not having, my aunt was able to help with those funeral expenses. But what if we didn't have my aunt? Like, what would have happened in that circumstance, right? So what are your thoughts with saving? Is it combined with that, or is it something different?
So it's combined with that, right? So for example, if you want to figure out how much life insurance you need, number one, a very casual funeral is about $20,000. Okay. Like nowadays, unfortunately, I have planned and helped pay for many because people didn't have enough life insurance, or I just didn't want that person to have to take from that bucket of money. So we were able to help in that area. But number one, yes, of course, funeral expenses. But what life insurance is really for is for everything that comes after that, right? Like, man, you don't want anyone in your family to have to try to get up and go to work and suck it up like when they're in the middle of grief. So if you're thinking for like you and your spouse, yes, funeral expenses, how much would it take to pay off your mortgage or to buy if you're not living, if you're renting, then how much would it take to buy a home where they don't have to think about that anymore? And then at least 1 year of living expenses. Okay. And again, it's not as expensive as you would think, right? We just got someone who's 60 years old, $500,000 in life insurance for under $200 a month. Okay. And they had no exam because they're healthy. Okay. Now, again, that's not going to be the case for everybody, but that's so important. And the person who's 60 years old, their kids are grown and all those things, but it's also a way to leave a legacy. And two, you just don't know how everyone's going to be able to process grief, how everyone's going to be able to take care of that. So you definitely need the funeral expenses, but you also need a lot more than that too.
Cesley, is there any other questions that you have?
I don't think so. I'm excited to honestly just listen to this again. I'm excited to go back and listen to the whole podcast again. I think, thank you, Ashton, so much for being on here. I think this is such an important topic, not just as women, as moms, as partners to our spouses and significant others. I think it's something that we as women don't take seriously enough. Yeah. And I think, just like you said, we tend to bury our head in the sand a little bit. And so I think it's important to put our big girl panties on and get working. So I appreciate all of your information and your mindset on it and your viewpoint on it. And I love you so much for being so kingdom minded. And we're just so grateful for you.
Yeah. I love you both too. And just, hey, listen, I know I've said a couple things that are tough love on here, but it's because I really care. And I do care about the kingdom, and I do care about the next generation. And I do care about, more than anything, I care about every person that's listening. I care about their emotional freedom and their emotional health, and being organized financially just allows you to operate in such a different way. And it allows you to operate in your calling because you're not like living on this little hamster wheel. So thank you guys so much for having me on.
Absolutely, Ashton. Before you jump off, can you tell everybody how they can contact you and where they can find you?
Yes. So the best place to find me is going to be on Facebook or Instagram. I have a very unique name, so there's only going to be one of me whenever you look me up. So it's Ashton Beisel, ASHTONBEISEL. And you can just shoot me a friend request, a follow, and shoot me a message. Or like I said, if you want to get the budget sheet, you can go to Work with Devin and Ashton. Devin is spelled DEVIN, workwithdevinandashton.com/budget sheet. And if you put your email in there, we're going to send you the budget sheet, and then you can always reply to that email for an appointment as well.
I love it. Thank you, Ashton. You guys heard that is your homework, the budget sheet. All right. We can't wait to help you glow and grow. Okay. So remember, you guys, you're worthy, you're capable, you're beautiful, and we can't wait to watch you grow, girl.